Servus, Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. What is happening in Bavaria right now could be huge for the political situation in Germany. I often talked about this cordon sanitaire or this firewall or Brandmauer as we call it in German, and that is the pact of all the mainstream parties to not work together with the AfD. Now, this story doesn't concern the AfD directly, but it could have huge consequences for how the German mainstream deals with right-wing positions, or in other words, how the accusation of being right-wing and calling them the N-word and stuff like that, how this kind of accusation loses its effectiveness. This tool became blunt, so to speak. Conservative people or a little more patriotic right-wing people, they will not be too scared about this maybe anymore in the future. In today's talk, I want to explain to you exactly what I mean by that and what this has to do with the Bavarian politicians Mr. Markus Söder and Mr. Hubert Aiwanger from the CSU and the Freien Wähler, the Free Voters in Bavaria, and why I would call them based cucks in this situation. Now, for the full story of how this started, you can look at my previous video, which I linked down below, in which I explained to you how a communist former teacher of Mr. Aiwanger, who is the Minister for the Economy in Bavaria and the Vice Governor under Governor Mr. Markus Söder from the CSU, how this former teacher dug up an old pamphlet that his brother wrote. He claimed that it was in fact Mr. Aiwanger who wrote it, and then this huge false scandal was cooked up by the media in a coordinated fashion. This old pamphlet had a couple of jokes about German camps during wartime in it, and that normally is enough to get someone cancelled completely in Germany, only if that person is politically on the right, of course, but I think we have a common understanding about these things on this channel. So the aftermath was that Mr. Söder said that this is a very serious offense, and of course the German mainstream and the left-wing establishment, they demanded that he fires Aiwanger right away and that he will bow down to the special exotics and pledges that he will have a new coalition with the Green Party. That was of course the idea all along. Now Mr. Söder did no such thing. He sent Mr. Aiwanger a list of 25 questions. That is almost like if he is the judge at a court trial, or as if that was some kind of inquisition here. But yeah, these 25 questions, Mr. Aiwanger answered them on the weekend. And there were some general questions in the beginning, like why this stuff was found in his bag back then, and on what typewriter it was written, and who wrote it. And yeah, he said again that his brother wrote it, not him. And yeah, then there are some questions about what his reaction was when he first saw it and stuff like that. And but then when it went deeper, like why was this and that written, he always said, well, you have to ask my brother, I didn't write it, I don't know. And a lot of the details also, he just claims that he cannot remember anymore, which is of course a very good excuse in Germany, because our chancellor, Mr. Scholz, also doesn't remember a lot of things, like when he met with Warburg bankers in Hamburg and why the tax money that they stole from the German taxpayers was not demanded back in Hamburg by the authorities, even though they knew about the theft. And then why the Bank of Warburg donated a lot of money to the Social Democrat Party in Hamburg. He can't remember. So I can't remember is a very good answer. Das entzieht sich meiner Kenntnis. I don't know about this. Very good answer. So, and then there are some other questions about what that personally meant for him. And then he said, well, it made me think about several things. And then was there any other right-wing activity in your past? And then he said, yeah, I made some mistakes as a young boy, but I reflected on this and now it's okay. He said that he regrets his decisions from back then, but now he's a different person. So he basically doesn't answer too much. In a lot of ways, he says he doesn't know anymore. It is a long time ago, 35 years. He was 17 back then. And the consequence was that Mr. Söder, He called a press conference that was no press conference. He just declared something to the press with no questions afterwards. And he just said, yes, this is a serious thing and we don't take this lightly. But Mr. Aiwanger stays my vice governor. He stays the minister for the economy in Bavaria. And also, I want to continue this coalition after the election. He then said that Mr. Aiwanger has to go to the Central Committee of the Special Exotics in Germany and talk to them and reflect on his former convictions. And also, he has to apologize to them. Now, the Grand Priestess of the Special Exotics in Germany has already turned down his apology and said that, no, I will not accept your apology. And then everyone in Germany just shrugged their shoulders and thought, well, that's kind of your decision then. So the world keeps on turning, I guess. But the really important thing happened afterwards, and that was at a festival in Lower Bavaria in the Hallertau. The festival is called Gillermoos. It is a very traditional, old and large festival where you will see rides and beer tents, pretty much like the Oktoberfest, I would say. And this is also a very political festival. You get to hear a lot of political speeches in these beer tents at this festival. And that is kind of the home turf of Mr. Aiwanger. Mr. Söder is from Franconia in the north, so Lower Bavaria, his home turf. And he had the biggest tent there, I believe. And the people celebrated him like a rock star. When he arrived there, they were shouting his name, Hubert, Hubert. And he didn't really talk about this affair of this pamphlet when he was a boy and of his alleged right-wing past and how everyone was calling him basically the N-word in Germany, all these established media outlets at least, and the left-wing parties. So he more or less ignored that, and in his speech, he went on the attack. That means he attacked the Green Party, he attacked the political establishment in Berlin, and at the other tent where Mr. Söder was speaking, he did the same thing pretty much. He attacked the Green Party. He said that they're not representing Germany, their ideology does not fit to Bavaria, and there will never, ever be a coalition with the Green Party. I have to admit, I was surprised in a positive way, because I would have thought that Mr. Söder would maybe drop Mr. Aiwanger, that this would be a welcome opportunity for him to drop this not so easy vice governor that he has now. But I think he realized that the Green Party is so unpopular that there is no way he can get away with a coalition with the Green Party. They are the new enemy number one for the conservative parties in Germany. So they are, of course, cucks, I know that, but in this case, they are based cucks. And what they're doing by being based in this situation, despite the fact that he basically told Mr. Aiwanger, like a judge, that he has to apologize to the special exotics. And just imagine if any exotic in Germany says something against Germans or is believed to have said something against Germans, that he has to appear in front of the High Council of Indigenous Germans and beg them for forgiveness. Yeah, of course, no such thing exists. That's only for these special exotics here. Yeah, but the reason why I think that this is so big is that this weapon of browbeating people and calling them nasty words that they don't want to be called, like trying to isolate them socially, make them lose their friends and their jobs in that way, calling them the N-word, right? That this kind of weapon finally got a little more blunt. And there were all these lefty interviewers who went around in the beer tent and tried to interview people and try to find some people that are dissatisfied with the way that Mr. Aiwanger and Mr. Söder handled that. But all the people basically said into the microphones that no, Hubert is like one of us and he's there for us, we are there for him, and we're one team, and they're our politicians and they're speaking to the people directly. So this is really Berlin is perceived as the ivory tower, and the CSU and the free voters, they are perceived by the people as the beer tent. So the beer tent against the ivory tower. This is what this is. And of course, this year in Bavaria, nobody wants to be the ivory tower. That is for sure. So it seems like that centrist, conservative, even cucked Bavaria has circled the wagons around someone who was called the N-word and who, let's be honest here, who probably was pretty far right-wing when he was under 20. I mean, I've seen the pictures of Mr. Aiwanger. He was sporting the nice beard. And let's be honest here, he probably knew that his brother was writing that, and he was probably distributing those pamphlets, and that's why he had them in his backpack. Of course, you can't prove that, but it is no secret, I guess, that he was pretty far right as a young lad. And I also think that most of his voters are, well, I think when they hear these stories, that makes them want to vote for him even more. And I also don't think that anybody really believes that he's no longer thinking like that. Maybe not in this drastic way, and he wouldn't write these things anymore the way he wrote them as a 17-year-old, but I'm pretty sure that in his heart he knows who belongs into Germany and who doesn't. And just the very fact that many voters, and I mean, I should say now that we don't have polls yet from after this scandal or this pseudo scandal broke, but the general mood and the general sentiment of people in large beer tents always was pretty reflective of what the general population thought in Bavaria. Now, Bavaria is not only Lower Bavaria or the Hallertau or Munich or the Alps, I know that, but I don't think that in my home of Franconia it is any different. So I am really excited to see polls from after this whole affair, and I could imagine that the free voters will even get a boost in the polls after this, because this story is really doing two things. One, as I already said, it makes this accusation of being an evil right-winger even more ineffective. There have been several events in the past, but this is a big one. And the other thing is that it polarizes, so that means people who are lefties, they will be even more in favor of the SPD and the Green Party, but people who are more centrist and conservative and more common sense, not necessarily right-wing, but they are dragged to the right by that because they hear all of this progressive screeching and they read what Mr. Aiwanger wrote back then, and still the conservatives are holding on to him, are still having his back, so they think, oh well, that's the way things are right now apparently. So maybe I'm reading too much into that. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But I think metapolitically that is a very big event right now. And this is exactly how the left in Germany thinks about that. They think that this is a large crack in the firewall, or the cordon sanitaire has been breached in a big way, and this is not in the east, this is not the new federal states from central Germany, this is Bavaria, this is the south, this is a state from the old federal republic. Anyway, so if you want to have more reports like this, like, share and subscribe, and also if you want to, you can support me financially via Patreon or Subscribestar. Have a nice day. Servus, Kameraden.